Welcome to She Sells Radio. So, as I was thinking about how I wanted to introduce my guest today, this came to mind that if you were not in a yoga pants rut pre 2020, chances are that 2020 did it for you. And as you were listening this today, no shame if you're in yoga pants, my friend. Trust me, I'm in them like half the time myself these days, probably more than half the time as a new mom. But my guest today on the podcast found that being in that rut was actually impacting her self-worth, her self-confidence, and how she showed up. And so as you're listening, if you know my guest, you're probably guessing who she is. Alison Lumbatis of Get Your Pretty On, which is a hugely popular wardrobe styling service, online brand blog. She's got an incredible Instagram presence. She's built a 7-figure membership site with this brand. Just an incredible woman. She's on the show today, and there were several things that we talked about that I think are so important because you may not be attaching, okay, how does yoga pants relate to growing my sales? I actually think it has a lot to do with it. And here's why. The genesis of Alison's business, and she'll share more with you about this in the interview, but it started from realizing that she was really struggling with self-worth because of how she was showing up physically on the outside. And when I think about some of the things that suppress a woman's earning potential, lack of self worth is a big one. And it's something I personally have struggled with a lot in my life. And I see a lot of my female clients struggling with it as well. And I'm on a mission to help as many women as possible step into the fact that they are worthy no matter what. But you know what? Sometimes we need a little bit of help starting to feel that way. And part of what I love about Alison and what she shares is she's going to share how you can start feeling that way regardless of your body shape, size, doesn't matter. This is about stepping into a new level of you and owning the best and fullest and brightest version of you. So, we're going to talk about self worth and how she's up leveled her self worth over the years. When it comes to money and business, a couple of the things we talked about that I think are going to be really, really helpful to you are one, how did she handle it when it was time to increase her prices and not being able to take all of her old customers along the way with her? And that was a really big pivotal moment in her business. And she talks about some of the backlash that happened when she did that and how she navigated that. So that's really important, I think, for any of us who are business owners. And probably my favorite part of the conversation was when we really dug into her relationship with money and the energetics around it. And as she has up leveled how much she makes, how she has also become the woman who feels confident and worthy of making that much money. And that's not a lot of what we expect when we set out to make more money, right? We think, give me $1 million tomorrow and I'll be happy. But the likelihood is, if you were not already at that financial frequency, which if you were, you'd probably have it, it can throw you for a loop. So as you are a woman who continues to make more money, there's also the deep inner work that has to go on to be the type of woman who can hold that amount of money. So we talk about how she did that. She also shares some really interesting insight on how men versus women are different with how we think about money, and how working with male coaches has actually really helped her think differently and much bigger. And it was a big aha moment for me of, wow, like, how have I been limiting my thinking about what's possible? And just getting outside perspective, sometimes from the other gender, is really valuable and helpful, and seeing how they show up and how much more confident sometimes they are with this. So this was an amazing interview. It touched me deeply emotionally with some of what she shared. And I think you're going to just love it and enjoy it. And it's about a heck of a lot more than yoga pants. So whatever you're wearing right now, yoga pants or otherwise, get ready to enjoy this insightful and inspiring conversation with Alison Lumbatis. Alison, welcome to She Sells Radio. This is so exciting. It's been a bit of a work in progress. My fault, 100% for having this interview. And you've been so gracious because I've just been so excited to share who you are. And I know so much of my audience already knows who you are and probably follows you. And it's exciting to get to have this behind the scenes kind of conversation with you and get to know you better. So thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. These are my favorite conversations to have.
I love it. I love it. Well, part of, when I think about your brand and what you've done, part of your mission and what I love is helping every woman feel pretty. And I think there's kind of the more quote unquote superficial benefit to that, which isn't really superficial, but it's you look great on the outside. But what I love about what you offer is that deeper transformation, that sometimes feeling good about ourselves on the inside starts with taking care of ourselves on the outside. And one of the biggest problems that I've seen for women who are either business owners or sales professionals who aren't hitting their income goals is actually that it's tied to lack of self-worth. And that was so much of my story. And I know it's been a part of yours and part of what inspired you to create Get Your Pretty On. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe where you were before all of this happened and what was going on for you and how that turned into this incredible business that you have today?
Absolutely. So they say that the best ideas are born out of a need that we have ourselves. And really, that's how Get Your Pretty On started. I had been working from home for 6 months and I was in corporate America at the time. And it was a super blessing. Like my dream come true. I had 3 young kids at home and I'd always wanted to work from home, but I noticed something subtle happening over the course of 6 months where, I was feeling super motivated, getting a lot done around the house, getting a lot done at work. And slowly over time, things just sort of fell apart. And I couldn't really pinpoint when or why, but I knew one of the major things that had changed was I didn't have accountability anymore for waking up in the morning, getting dressed and putting on my makeup and getting ready for the day. I would just roll out of bed, throw on my yoga pants, make breakfast for the kids, get them off to school, not spend any time on myself whatsoever, and just dive into work. And over time, I think my motivation was the first thing to go, but then I started noticing other subtle things. Like I put on a few pounds. I wasn't cooking as healthy. I wasn't keeping up with things as well around the house. I just wasn't feeling as in love with my job as I used to. And I just woke up one day and I'm like, I'm a problem solver. I got to figure this out. I'm an engineer. There's something here that I can pinpoint that is the problem. And the first thing that I went to was, I've got to get dressed tomorrow morning. And that was 12 years ago. I woke up the next morning about an hour before everybody else in the house and I planned my day out. And part of my planning that day was to make time to carve out 30 minutes to get dressed, get a shower, get dressed in real clothes and put on some makeup. And the first day that I did that, I just couldn't believe how much better I felt. I had so much more energy. My motivation was back. And when I picked my daughter up from school that day and she hopped in the car and looked at me like long, hard pause and said, "Mommy, what happened to you?" And she's like, "You look pretty today." And I think that was the thing for me that just made me realize this isn't just affecting me. This is affecting everyone in my sphere of influence. It's affecting my daughters. It's affecting my marriage. My husband noticed when he got home that night, I started cooking healthier. I started working out again. And it was this snowball effect, from the spiral down into this yoga pants rut and feeling really, if I'm being honest, depressed, to then realizing that this one small step in the right direction could really make such a huge impact. And I just wanted to share that with other women. And that's why I started my blog initially. I didn't know much about style, but I knew what I was learning and I wanted to share that with other women too. And bonus, blogging was an accountability partner that made me get dressed every day.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Well, and gosh, I think about what a better time in history for us to be having this conversation than right now when everyone's still working from home. Half the population has discovered yoga pants if they didn't already own a ton of pairs. And it's just interesting because I think a lot of times, kind of like I said at the beginning, we think that the transformation has to come from deep inner work. Like if we're struggling with depression or just feeling low. And there's a lot to be said for that. But part of what I love about your approach is it can be as simple as showing up differently physically the next day. And I notice it too in my own life. Like I did my makeup today. I did my hair today. I used to do it every day and take a lot of pride in that. And I've worked from home for about 7 years. So that wasn't the whole working from home thing wasn't really new. But then once I had my son, I found myself really like quickly starting to slip into, hair in the bun for the 4th day in a row, greasy, like, if I've got some mascara on, I'm lucky. And I'm a makeup girl. Like I actually really enjoy putting on makeup when I have the time. And, today I actually did it, right? Because I've got podcast interviews and I was speaking for a client earlier today and you feel better. The way you feel about yourself inside changes. So I
I
just,
love what you said about you taking the action first, because a lot of us think like I have to feel a certain way in order to take an action, but actually the opposite is true. When you take that action, the feeling follows the action. So to women who are just out there listening right now, and you're saying to yourself, but I'm just not feeling it, trust us. Try it, take the action, because the feeling will definitely follow.
yes, yes. And the other thing you said that I think is important is that we don't realize how we show up impacts everyone around us.
Mhm.
And so when we hold ourselves to a lower standard, the people around us start to do that as well. It just kind of happens. So it's almost like an act of love and caring and service for the people around you, that you're going to decide to show up as your best self so that your family, your friends, the people around you like take notice, and they think, oh, she's showing up that way, why can't I do the same? And we build off of each other's energy in that way. So I think it's a great way of giving that I hadn't really thought about before. Now, one of the things that I love talking about sales and business growth, and you've built this incredible 7-figure business. And so I'm excited to get into that with you a little bit. But one of the things that I'm always really interested in, and that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, are my guest relationship with sales. So most of our listeners are in sales of some sort, whether they run their own company and they do revenue and lead generation for it, or whether they are selling for another organization. And for you, and you obviously, like, you sell online, you sell your programs online, but what is your relationship with sales? Has it always been really easy for you? Has it been challenging? Has it, like, tell us about that and how it's evolved over the years.
So I'll tell you a fun story about my sales history. So for 2 years, I blogged and made no money at all. And when I got to year two, I took a voluntary severance with my corporate job that I had been with for 14 years, and decided I was just going to pour everything into my blog, and making it eventually take over, take the place of my income. And I think the hardest thing at that point was that I felt like I was friends with my readers and I didn't want to sell to them. And I had a business coach at the time, and she said, Alison, they want you to sell to them. They want what you have. You have a solution that you can offer them that's going to make their lives easier. And it's just an exchange of money. So let's think about some ideas and brainstorm some ways that you can provide a solution to them and you can make money doing this. And I remember whenever I first put together my program, the Outfit Formulas program, one of the things my readers said was, hey, can you give me a shopping list of pieces to go out and buy every season, some wardrobe basics, and then some trends thrown into that, and show me some ways to wear them. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. That's great. I do this all day long. So I put together the first capsule wardrobe and I launched it to my readers. I was super nervous. I just did a blog post about it. It was super cheap at the time. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to be happy if 50 women sign up for this. But I just remember the whole time feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so like sleazy for wanting my readers to buy this from me. And the funny thing about that was that the lesson that I took from this was I wanted 50 women to sign up and said I would have been happy. 500 signed up that very first time. And that to me was just so incredibly validating, and really just reiterated what my coach was telling me already, is like, yes, they want to buy something from you. They're happy to give you money. Nobody's going to think you're being sleazy by doing this. And I think that that's where I had that big mindset shift, that I was offering something of value, and sales from that point forward became so much easier.
Wow. Yeah. That's so, gosh, what validation. So for you, when that happened, did that permanently fix any like queasiness around selling, or did you still have to overcome any insecurities or limiting beliefs around it?
I did. I think that I had limiting beliefs around it. And when the time came that I had to increase my prices, I know that so many of us have gone through this. It's really an emotional thing, especially for women. Um, but I invested so much more into the technology. I was adding value to the program, and just getting to that point where I had to say, hey, I'm going to be increasing prices. I did get backlash. And I think for me, that was the hardest part, was like my worst fear came to be. And
Mm.
my program has always been really geared toward women who are on a budget, and particularly moms. So I kind of knew that was going to happen. But I did preface it in a really positive light by sharing with them that I had been investing all this money into technology, into all of these things that were making the program better. But I think that at that point, I was about 2 years into the process of selling. And even though the backlash hurt and I took it personally, I also knew deep in my core that it was the right thing to do. And that, again, was another big mindset shift. It's like the whole new level, new devil thing,
Yeah.
where I've had to break through each level. I don't think I've had any major mindset blocks since then, other than as my income has gone up, I've had to adjust to that. But yes, selling has become so much easier through the years. And just, again, really reminding yourself of the value that you're giving women. And in this program, confidence is what we're really selling. The Trojan horse is the program, but what we're selling is confidence. And it's hard to put a price on that. So I've always kept my prices reasonable because I want so many women to have access to it. But that's not to say if you have a high dollar value program that you're not providing tremendous amounts of value to. So you have to decide which model you want to do. Either you're going to sell to a few people at the high dollar amount and give them tons and tons of attention and value, or you're going to be able to sell to the masses at the lower dollar amount. Either way, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious too, because I want to hear about how you handled the backlash. But one quick thing I'll say that I think is a helpful just mindset around pricing, and this is something we teach at Brand Builders Group, is you aim to give 10 times the value of what you're charging, whether that's $10 or $1 million. If you can feel confident about my people are getting at least 10 times the value of this, then it's like, okay, you feel good about that. And you feel like they're getting a great deal on it. For you, when you got that backlash though, Alison, how did you handle that? Because I know you said it through you. And I think part of why a lot of women are afraid to put themselves out there is that very fear. Like you said, your worst fear realized of people, of haters and people saying they don't like you, right? We're taught everyone needs to like us growing up. So how did you get through that?
It was really, really hard. I want to say that it was one of the darkest times in my business, honestly, because I knew what I was offering and I knew the value of my offer. And I was offering something 10 times more valuable than what I was charging. And, personal stylists cost $150 an hour to have somebody come in and shop your closet for you and maybe put together 10 outfits out of your closet and then take you shopping. And then you've got the expense on top of that. And so I was able to counter with that information. But, just hearing women say to me, like, I feel like you're taking advantage of me, that I'm here because I don't have much budget to work with. And I was personally going back and forth with people and not, like trying to validate my worth. And I think one of the big lessons out of this for me was that, number one, I needed a customer support person, somebody between me and the customer, so that the backlash wasn't something that I was going to be taking as personally. And I was able to provide canned responses to someone else who could go and give them that information. And I was able to break down the value of the program in that way and not have to worry about getting into this loop of going back and forth with somebody arguing about my price. And then I had to accept the fact that some people just aren't meant to be my customers, and I could let them go. And that was okay. Yes. And you're right. We want people to like us so much and we want to be everybody's cup of tea. But at some point you have to accept that you're not everybody's cup of tea. And my program is not for everyone. And just a huge, huge breakthrough for me in that area.
Gosh, that's so good. That's so good. And the thing that you said that stuck out to me was you felt like you were trying to validate your worth.
Yes.
And don't we all do that, right? Whether it's trying to validate how much we're charging or validate that the content we posted was good by how many people like it. And at the end of the day, we have to all decide and just own that we are worthy and there's nothing anyone can do or say that's going to change that. And we're the ones who have to kind of give ourselves that crown and say, you're it, sister, right? It's that looking for outside opinions that'll kill us. So I love that you shared that and I appreciate that. And I think the other thing that I took away from what you shared, because sometimes women, especially if you have been marketing and serving, an audience that's not making as much money, and you do shift your prices, because that's natural as you grow your business and as you grow and develop as a human, you have to increase your prices somewhat, even if just to account for taxes and inflation, right? Like there has to be natural increases if you're going to stay in business. But we can worry about, well, am I leaving people behind? And to your point, if not everyone has to be my customer, and you give away so much great content for free online. And I always think about it that way too. Like, even if you can't afford to work with me, I'm going to give away great free stuff online. I'm going to help and show up. But if you want to work with me, these are my prices, and I feel good about that. And I stand with them.
Mhm.
So I just think it's an important mindset, for a lot of women. I wanted to ask you too, when you started making more money, how did you mentally adjust to that? Because we all think like, oh, it's, give me $1 million tomorrow and I'll take it, right? I'll be totally fine with it. But I wonder, did that trigger for you any questioning of like, ooh, am I worthy of this amount of money? Can I handle, right? Like, we have to kind of rise to that next level. I had on another guest, whose interview will be airing shortly, who went from being fired because of COVID to making six figures in, I think it was like 90 days, in a business she had just launched. And we talked about that mental leap that was required for her to be able to like hold that and feel good about that. Did that did that show up for you at all when you started making more money? And how did you step into being the woman who does make this type of money now?
Yes. Oh my gosh, did it ever show up for me? So in my first year of doing this, I realized that, okay, so my goal was I want to replace half of my corporate salary. That was what my first year one goal was. And when the program launched, I realized very quickly that I was going to easily hit that goal and go beyond it. It was a six-figure year in year one after launching the program. So I went from making $600 my first year to $6,000 my second year. This was just in blogging. I actually wasn't making money at the time because I was putting more money into it. So we're talking top line revenue here,
Mm.
to six figures in my third year. So that was a huge leap for me. And initially my gut reaction was hoard, hoard, hoard. I saved up all the money. I was putting it away. I'm like, this could go away tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen. So I just put it all in savings and let it sit there. And then I slowly started to invest more and more into it, as after I realized that I was having growth season after season and continuing in that direction. And honestly, since 2014 and the first launch of the program, every single season when we launch, we've had growth. And I feel just incredibly blessed to say that. It hasn't come easy. And even with the pandemic, we did not know, my team and I didn't know what to expect this year. But as you said, offering the freebies and giving the resources and all of the things that we had to shift and pivot and do were actually really beneficial to the business this year. And we also served a need for women who were working from home for the first time and having to adjust their wardrobes. So it's been a good year despite everything going on. But yes, just that money mindset. I think a book that was really pivotal for me, and this is something that I've practiced through the years, is incremental upgrades. And I learned this from Denise Duffield Thomas in her book, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch.
Oh, I've
It's a
heard of that. I
bestseller.
haven't read it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great book. But if you have any money mindset issues, I highly recommend it. She talks about how, making the leap is hard, but if you upgrade your life and the things around you incrementally instead of all at once, it allows that shift to happen a little bit more easily. And I would say that that's exactly what I've done through the years, is just really, whenever I've felt it in my core being that it was time for that next level, accepting that and moving into that next level, because I really think we do have to have an acceptance of the money that's coming in. It's energy, it's flow, and knowing that it's okay. And don't block that money flow that's coming in. And we have so many subconscious blocks that so many of us are not aware of. And a lot of the things I like about Denise too is that she talks about the ways that women sell differently than men. And we're like, oh, I've got this little thing I want to sell you.
Yeah.
But you don't have to buy it. It's okay if you don't want to buy it, but men are just like so bold and out there and not afraid to ask for the sale. And yeah, that book was definitely life-changing for me. She has a boot camp that goes along with the book too. And I did that as well. And I've definitely referred back to it many times over the past few years.
I love that. I absolutely love that, Alison. And it made me think about, God bless her, but one of my Facebook connections a couple of weeks ago sent me a DM, and she's new with the network marketing business. The DM literally opened with, "Hi, how are you? I'm sorry, please don't hate me. But have you heard? I'm new with this company, blah, blah, blah." And I thought, oh my gosh, like what, clearly she's afraid to do the outreach, which I think any of us who have done prospecting for our business, whether it's calls or DMs or texts, you kind of feel that. But what energy to bring into the interaction of, please don't hate me right off the bat. And even if we don't come out and say it in that extreme of an example, do we still carry that energy into what we're doing when we show up and make an offer? Do you have any sort of like mindset or visualization practice that helps you as you keep up leveling your financial frequency?
I do a lot of journaling, and I think that that's been helpful through the years, and I've been doing it for probably 10 years. So I just keep it in a simple Word doc on my laptop, and I spend about 10 to 15 minutes every single morning. It's a way I start my day. It's a prayer journal. It's a meditation journal. And I also use it as a way of really just being my own therapist in a way, and going, back and forth with myself and talking through the challenges and the roadblocks and the issues, and just being really self-aware has been so pivotal to accepting that. And honestly, seeking out male coaches. I had female coaches for so many years, and then I shifted to, I went into a mastermind in 2019, which was really life-changing. And having male coaches in the way that they think about money versus the way that women do. And, I hate to say that we think so differently in this area, but we really do. And it was very eye-opening to me.
What are some of the biggest
sales from that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. What are some of the biggest differences that you've seen in terms of how men versus women think about money? I'm really curious.
I think that men are not afraid to think bigger than women are. Just for example, when I would set a revenue goal, and my coach would say, "Well, why don't we set that revenue goal 5 times of where you're at right now?" Or why you want to grow your list by X amount, let's 5X the amount that you're growing your list. Like, think audaciously. Don't set realistic goals. Set goals that are so big and so out there that even if you fall short, it's like shoot for the moon, you'll land in the stars kind of thing. And that to me was really eye-opening, because I was setting very safe goals through the years in business. And that was a very strange concept at first, but one that truly paid off, because last year I did 5X all of my goals. No, I did not meet them, but I far exceeded where I would have landed if I had stuck with those safe goals that I had been setting for the past few years.
Wow. I love that you shared that. And it makes me think about, why do we not do that naturally? I don't know about you. I guess for me, when I think about why in certain times in my life, I haven't gone for a bigger goal, it's because I didn't want to be disappointed, or it was something about perfectionism and I've got to hit it. And if I don't, that means something bad about me. But, that mindset of like, why not go for it? It's exciting. It's energizing. It's invigorating. I set a goal in my own business to do a big quantum leap this year. And just the way it's had me show up differently and how much bolder and more aggressive I am. It's like to me, the purpose of a goal is more about who you become along the way of working to attain it than the actual thing. Because when you hit the thing, you're going to celebrate for like 5 minutes, and you're gonna be like, okay, what's next?
Yes.
So, so if you set goals that don't require you to change, then you're never gonna change. So that's really, really
I love that you brought that up, because I think that was the biggest change for me last year was in the confidence, because just setting those goals required me to become a different person. It required me to be the person who does the scary thing, who does the outreach to that influencer that I've never worked with. It's like on my dream list, to send that email, to request to be on that podcast, like all of those things that I normally wouldn't have done, I did because of those bigger goals that I set.
Yes, that's it. It's like that built-in sense of urgency, kind of a burn the ships, I got to do this or else type of thing, that it gets you acting and showing up differently. And when we, like you've talked about in this podcast, when we act differently and show up differently, things change for us. You said something a little while ago, Alison, about when you were talking about the incremental upgrades, and when you feel like you kind of sense in your gut that it's time to go to the next level, that's one other thing I want to ask you about, because part of my mission with this show and with this brand is to help women learn how to trust themselves. I think that it has been baked out of us in a lot of instances, certainly myself. And for many of us, we don't know how to get in touch with our intuition and how to trust when we feel that instinct of it's time to upgrade this, or it's time to do something that seems outlandish, but actually my heart is calling me to do it, and we suppress those instincts. How did you learn to trust yourself over the years?
I think at first the way that this showed up for me was in this gnawing feeling of being discontent. And to the outside, I had from the outside, I had some judgment for that. Like, why can't you be happy with where you are? And a lot of times we're getting this message, and just getting around like-minded entrepreneurs totally changed my perspective on this, where I no longer felt guilty for wanting more, but I felt like I was with a group of people who got it. It wasn't about being unhappy at all. It was about moving the needle. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with moving the needle and wanting more out of life. And if you love to travel, then why not travel the world? If you have a dream house in mind, then work toward that dream house. You're responsible for your dreams, and no one else has the right to judge what those dreams are or what is enough for you. And I think getting past that was a huge obstacle in my life to accepting that little gnawing voice, the nagging voice that was saying, hey, I want to live, on acreage, or I want, the things that I wanted, to know that there was nothing wrong with that, and honor that voice and say, this is how I was made. This is how God created me to be. And I like nice things, and that's okay. It's okay to like nice things. It's okay to like beautiful things. It's okay to want to travel. This is okay. But really just trusting that that was the way that I was designed, and not apologizing for it, and not feeling bad that just because someone in my family is not that way, or one of my friends is not that way, does not make me wrong for wanting more and for being that way.
Oh, I get full body chills when you talk about that. It actually makes me a little teary eyed, because I think we are taught, so many of us are taught growing up as girls, like, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. So we suppress it in order to be accepted and to feel safe. And so those desires that show up, we make wrong.
Yes.
And one of my dear girlfriends, she's another Alison Chavez. She's been on the show before. She's a wealth and prosperity coach. What she says about wealth, I love this. She says, we are naturally wired for expansion. Everything on the planet is evolving, changing, growing, expanding. And as humans, we are naturally wired for expansion. And so when you hit a certain level, it is the way you are naturally created, that you are meant to then go to the next and go to the next and go to the next. And we get it messed up in our heads about it, meaning that we're not grateful or we're materialistic. But I know for a lot of us, like you, me, and a lot of the women listening, part of why we want to keep expanding is we want to make a bigger impact in the world. And we can want to keep expanding to get some Jimmy Choos too. It's like, you can have both. There's nothing that's
I really love that. And I
both.
have permission.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I do think if anyone felt like they needed permission, here you go. But you don't, because again, one of the messages that I love that I that you share and that I also want to share is just empowering women to think for themselves and say, I'm worth it, I can do it, and I don't need anyone other than myself to validate that. So yeah, thank you. I'm curious, final word of advice from you, and then I want you to tell everyone where they can connect with you if they're not already. So for a woman who's maybe a little bit earlier in her business career journey, and she's trying to get to like that first six figures, and she's doing all the things and she's working hard, and it hasn't quite gotten there yet, what would be your number one piece of advice to help her?
I think consistency at the end of the day. I know it's something we hear over and over again, but I've had so many people come to me and say, how did you make this work? Like, what do you think is the key to your success? And it has to be consistency, just showing up every day, showing up on the hard days. I didn't make money for 2 years. It was extremely difficult to show up some days thinking, this is not going to work. Like, I don't even see a way out of this, but just being consistent and coming with all that you have every single day, not getting discouraged, and knowing and trusting that the work that you're putting in is going to come back to you. It may not be today. It may take 2 years. It's okay. It will come. Just trust it.
I love that you share that. Thank you, because we do, and, myself included, we are in an instant gratification society, and to hear it's so powerful to hear from someone like you. Like, it was 2 years with no money from this, and you kept going and you kept showing up. And frankly, I think that's like almost 90% of the battle today is just who's going to hang on long enough, who will keep going.
And so many drop out of the game and quit. And that's, I just want to scream and say, you're so close, but you're so close, don't quit.
Yeah. It's like the 3 feet from gold concept, right? Like, you can't see it, but you are so close.
Yes.
And if you just kept going and did one more day, one more day, one more day, eventually it's kind of like the compound effect. You're going to get there. It has to happen. So this has moved me in ways I didn't expect. And I really appreciate just learning more about you and your journey, and how you shared, I think, for all of us as women, how we can expect more for ourselves, and show up as women who demand a certain level from ourselves and from life as well. And I so appreciate the example that you've set in that, and you've inspired me. And I know you've inspired everyone listening as well. So tell us about, if a woman wants to connect with you and find out more. And I know you've got a great freebie as well that you wanted to share with the audience. So tell us where everyone can connect with you, and how they can get more.
Definitely. So you can connect with me at getyourprettyon.com. And I've got tons of free resources there if you're looking to rebuild your wardrobe, or you're just looking to rediscover yourself. I have a lot of coaching freebies there too. So you can check those out at getyourprettyon.com/freebies.
I love it. Well, I think this is a great time of rediscovering ourselves for so many of us, and what a great way to do it with just how we show up on the outside. And I love how when we start there, the inner transformation starts as well. So thank you again, Alison, for your generosity, for your time today, and for how you've inspired all of us, myself included.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care. All right, guys, go connect with Alison. Enjoy getting to know her better. Grab some of those amazing freebies, and I will look forward to joining you next week for another episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.